Ilhan Omar, the very high-profile US Congresswoman from Minnesota, has been bumped off the powerful and prestigious House Committee on Foreign Affairs. The reason? She made some remarks that were interpreted as anti-Israel and therefore anti-Semitic. But you're wondering why this development happening at the other end of the world is a story for us here in India. I'll explain. To begin with, Ilhan Omar is a globally polarizing figure who frequently makes the headlines for strong views on religion, immigration and other hot-button issues. For much of her career, Ilhan Omar has been nothing more than an internet headline to India, which is fair. We have netas with strong views here, so why should we care about a neta with strong views elsewhere? Well, all that actually changed in 2019 when Ilhan Omar began speaking out about Kashmir and the restrictions being imposed there. That was fine. But she specifically expressed concern about religious freedom in Kashmir, which to India confirmed that this was more than just the usual political rhetoric. In April last year, 2022, Ilhan Omar, who has never had a word of criticism for Pakistan, not one single word, visited Pakistan, met with its leaders, glad-handed the Pakistan Army's incumbent puppets, and then proceeded to visit Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. At no point, I repeat, at no point did Ilhan Omar talk of religious freedom in Pakistan or POK. But things were about to get a whole lot worse, because after Ms. Omar returned to the United States after Pakistan, she immediately got busy drafting what would become House Resolution 1196. Presenting this in US Congress in June last year, Ilhan Omar's resolution, and I quote, condemned human rights violations and violations of international religious freedom in India, including those targeting Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Dalits, Adivasis, and other religious and cultural minorities. The resolution also called on the Department of State to designate India as a country of particular concern under the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998 and the Frank R. Wolf International Religious Freedom Act of 2016. In other words, 2 months after visiting Pakistan, a country with one of the worst freedom of religion records in the world for minorities, including minority sects of Sunni Islam itself, Ilhan Omar's professional priority was to push a resolution on India's religious freedom, a country with a 15% Muslim population, the third highest in the world. Even if you for a moment believe that her resolution was in some way justifiable, the very fact that Ilhan Omar doesn't have a word for Pakistan's record explains everything. And that's perhaps why there's now a sense of satisfaction by certain sections here in India, even if visceral, that Ilhan Omar has been unceremoniously voted off the House Committee on Foreign Affairs by the Republicans, themselves a party with a rock-bottom credibility right now, but that's a different story. By the time you watch this, Ilhan Omar has played every victim card you can think of. She's played the Muslim card, she's played the woman card, she's played the Muslim woman card, she's played the woman of color card, she's played the immigrant card. There is, of course, a section here in India that applauds Ilhan Omar because her words about India's religious freedom provide that nice international touch to their own toolkitted tirades. But their refusal to question or even talk about Ilhan Omar's visit to and the silence on Pakistan tells you everything you need to know about how artfully so-called Indian liberals cherry-pick even in the act of cheerleading. To conclude, Ilhan Omar being bounced from the House Committee on Foreign Affairs may not sound like much. After all, it's just a committee, right? We have thousands of those. Well, not quite. This committee we're talking about has a broad and influential mandate in the United States to oversee American legislation pertaining to national security's impact on foreign policy, crucial war powers, treaties, executive agreements, military deployments on foreign soil, foreign assistance, arms control, and international economic policy. Ilhan Omar will remain a controversial figure in a deeply polarized world. One only wonders what it'll take for her to speak about all religious freedom and not cherry-pick based on her own internal and political compulsions. So Ilhan Omar is no longer on the House Committee for Foreign Affairs. This was because of comments she'd made about Israel, interpreted as anti-Semitic. Take a look at how it went down. Ilhan Omar, US Congresswoman from Minnesota, known in the subcontinent for her anti-India rhetoric, has just been ousted from a high-profile American Foreign Affairs Committee. The Republicans, who enjoy a slender majority in the US House of Representatives, on Thursday won a bitterly fought vote to drop Ilhan Omar from the panel over her past remarks, widely condemned as anti-Semitic. The deeply divided House voted 218 to 211 along party lines to remove the Democratic Party member from the Foreign Affairs Committee.
On this vote, the ayes are 218, the nays are 211.
Ilhan Omar's political rival cited her 2019 tweet alleging Republican support of Israel was fueled by donations from a pro-Israeli lobby group to push her out. She had later apologized for the tweet that was condemned by her party colleagues as well. Moments before her expulsion, a defiant Ilhan said her voice will only get louder and stronger.
This conflict is a tragedy. Every rocket and bomb that targets civilians is a war crime. And I wish we as a nation treated that pain equally. But right now we are not. And instead of condemning blatant crimes against humanity and human rights abuses, many members of Congress have instead fallen back on a blanketed statement.
The controversial Congresswoman's ouster is viewed by the Democrats as revenge to far-right Republicans.
She made as a sitting member of Congress that under the totality of the circumstances disqualify her from serving on the Committee on Foreign Affairs.
The House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, however, claimed that her removal was not an act of revenge.
It's not right. We were right in our action, and she can serve on other committees. But it puts America in jeopardy, and I'm not going to do that under my watch. And it's fair in the process, unlike them.
Ilhan Omar has made several controversial comments in the past, even pushing a resolution to designate India a country of concern. She had visited Pakistan-occupied Kashmir in 2022, where she promised to mainstream Pakistan's concerns with India. Indian journalist Aarti Tikku, who was shut down by Ilhan Omar when she raised questions regarding the persecution of Kashmiri Hindus during congressional hearings in 2019, has hailed the ouster.
Finally, the truth has prevailed, and I'm really glad that Republicans have shown her the boot from the US Foreign Affairs Committee. Ilhan Omar is fundamentally a bigot, an Islamist, and a jihadist who stands by Pakistan's cross-border terrorism.
Ilhan Omar, who arrived in the United States as a refugee from Somalia, is the only African-born member of the US Congress and one of the only Muslim women in the House. Bureau Report, India Today. So how important is it that Ilhan Omar has been bounced from the very prestigious and powerful House Foreign Affairs Committee, and why is this a story for us here in India? I've explained some of it, but I want to get the views from our two leading guests on 5 Live today. Smita Prakash, editor, Asian News International. She's commented quite a bit on this development today, but I'd like to start with Suhag Shukla, executive director of the American Hindu Foundation. Suhag Shukla, welcome. Thank you very much for being with us here on India Today and on 5 Live. How important is the fact that Ilhan Omar has been voted off this House Committee on Foreign Affairs? And, why do you think it is being welcomed by so many sections here in India, including yourself?
Right. Well, the House Foreign Affairs Committee is a very important committee that drives and shapes the United States foreign policy. And so to have someone who in the past has denied genocides, such as voting present on the Armenian genocide, has promoted or pushed resolutions, as your reporter had mentioned,
Yes.
House Resolution 1196. This has an impact on the U.S.'s reputation in terms of its understanding of global trends. It impacts an already positive and robust U.S.-India relation by adding distractions to it. And it also leads to instability in a democracy when you have these sorts of diversions being pushed through when time should be spent on more serious issues like fighting terrorism, like calling out human rights challenges across the globe. So I know that, I'm actually here in India and I've been watching the news stories and the celebrations of it. It's a big deal, but I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that there's probably some politics at play, and these are kind of the political dynamics that are happening on the ground in the United States. When the Democrats had the House, they also ousted 2 Republicans off of committees, and now we're seeing kind of the same, but in the case of Representative Omar, she has made a number of controversial statements that were perceived as anti-Semitic, and we know that the resolution had not just misinformation, but painted a wildly inaccurate picture of India and the state of interreligious relations here.
Indeed, and things came to a head, Smita, to pull you in on this, when when she made that so-called personal visit, unofficial visit to Pakistan, where she met all of the leadership. Then she went to POK as well. There was a very strong reaction, unusually strong reaction from the Indian External Affairs Ministry at that time as well. So how do you see what has happened today?
Well, Shiv, I think it's a great big deal. I'm glad finally justice is done and Ilhan Omar got her just desserts. Maybe it's for an anti-Semitic comment, but I'm not looking at a gift horse in the mouth. I'm just glad it's happened. It's not because of Republican or Democrat that it happened. Like Alexandria Cortez has pointed out in her speech, that there were others who have said this. So it's quite clear that Ilhan Omar has a clear bias against Israel and the Jewish people. She cannot be expected to be objective on that panel, and we as Indians know that she's not objective, as you pointed out in your monologue initially and in the report, that she went out there to Pakistan, she met with, and supposedly on this personal visit. So who's funded that visit? It's still in the grey. Nobody knows who funded that visit. Did she take it out of her own money, or did Ghulam Fai fund that visit? Who knows, right? She goes to Pakistan, she meets with all those guys, and Pindi probably drafted that resolution against India when she went out there, because the US State Department washed its hands off and said, we've got nothing to do with it. Her agenda was so clear. She meets the newly appointed Prime Minister, I'll never say elected in Pakistan, Shahbaz Sharif. She meets the predecessor, Imran Khan. Now, why that? But nobody knows. And then she introduces this resolution in the US House of Representatives to condemn supposed human rights abuses in India. In that visit to POK and in that visit to Pakistan, she obviously didn't know anything about the Pashtun March. She didn't know anything at all about human rights abuses which are happening in Pakistan. But without coming to India, she is aware about the human rights, so-called human rights abuses in India, and then introduces this. She is just similar to what we have experienced in India with Robin Rafale. She's a mirror image of that, of Robin Rafale, the mother of Hurriyat, as she was called. So, this rabidly anti-India person, so if she goes out because of her anti-Semitic comments, it's fine by us.
Okay, fine by us. Gaurav, obviously I doubt there's going to be an official word from the Indian government on this, because, this is, after all, is an internal development in the US Congress. But the House Foreign Affairs Committee in the US is a powerful panel, as Suhag Shukla just told us. So limited to that, this is an important move. It's not like it's just something cosmetic. Her being voted off this committee does matter.
Oh, absolutely, Shiv. It matters it matters to India because somebody who was a guest of Pakistan's notorious ISI, as some argue, somebody as Smita very rightly pointed out, was in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, blind to what's happening in Pakistan. Even today, Shiv, an Ahmadi mosque has been targeted, has been desecrated in Pakistan. Somebody who's blind to what's happening at the epicenter of terror and focuses attention on India, which is a truly liberal democracy, just goes on to show that she was peddling somebody's agenda. A radical Islamist is out of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. She's not apologetic about it. But the fact that she's out of it, she's not apologetic about what she's done. But as far as India is concerned, one anti-India person not there in the House Foreign Affairs Committee is extremely interesting. But not that it matters, truly. As far as India is concerned, as of now, very strong to look any adversary in the eye and call a spade and call them out on what's happening in those countries. So truly, India doesn't want lectures from anyone. India no longer taking lectures from anyone.
Suhag Shukla, your tweet earlier today while you were watching India Today's coverage, I noticed, says, the way you interpret what has happened is this is a short break from the gratuitous attacks on witnesses to ethnic cleansing and inaccurate and inflammatory anti-Hindu resolutions like House Resolution 1196, which we were just talking about. In your view, this might sound like a naive question, but why does Ilhan Omar have it out for India and not Pakistan? Because most people watching will be wondering, she just went to Pakistan and like Smita said, she immediately went back to the US and drafted that resolution against India.
Right. Look, I can't be in her mind, but I think that we can look to her track record. She has a close relationship with, some questionable parties in Turkey. She voted just present as opposed to voting yes for acknowledging the Armenian genocide. She put this resolution against India that presented a very skewed picture that didn't even acknowledge the targeted killings of Hindus, Sikhs, and Muslims by Islamist militants in Kashmir in both 2021 and 2022. So I think her ideology is pretty clear just in her track record. In addition to comparing Israel with, or equating Israel with terrorist organizations, it's rather clear where her sympathies lie.
Very, very true. Smita, I'll end with you because one always wonders while looking at a polarizing figure like Ilhan Omar. She says some things, but she's conspicuously silent on others. We've taken the example of India and Pakistan. How does this hold up, in a country? Is she not interrogated enough? Is the ecosystem so powerful that she can get away with that kind of, blatant hypocrisy?
Look, you open the media in America today. Just open up any newspaper site. They are all backing Ilhan Omar. Right? So the left liberal media out there viciously attacking the House representatives. They are attacking them for getting her out. Her career trajectory is going, or was going at least, exactly in the manner of Robin Rafale, the lobbyist, the ambassador who legitimized Pakistan's cross-border terrorism. I mean, if she may be out of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, I hope she's put in some cultural committee or environment committee, and that's the end of us dealing with her. But there are other India baiters. There's Pramila Jayapal, there's Rashida Tlaib. I think Suhag would know more. There's this cartel of ultra-leftists who cannot stand that there is a BJP government in India. But it's not as if it's just a BJP government. Tomorrow, if whoever becomes Prime Minister of India, they will still remain anti-India. They live in a capitalist democracy, but they cannot appreciate democracies elsewhere in the world. They prefer a communist non-democracy like a China or a theocracy like Pakistan, but not a democracy which is somewhat, okay, maybe chaotic, but somewhat in the same lines as America.
Very, very true. I mean, better words not spoken on a story that's still unfolding. So we'll have to see where this lands. Like Suhag Shukla said, it's probably just a brief sort of intermission before she begins doing the same things over again on a different platform. Whether it's a cultural committee, as Smita is hoping for, or something else, it's certainly not going to be the last we've heard from Ilhan Omar and that ultra left liberal cartel. Thank you very much to Suhag Shukla and to Smita for giving us your time here on 5 Live, helping us understand and process this story and why something happening all the way across the world is important here in India as well. That's a wrap on 5 Live. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you at the same time next week.